Yo, welcome to another episode of the BJJ GOONS podcast. I'm your host, Tim, the Mushmaster Spriggs, and with me as always is...
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Nico Ball, no new Nico. Glad to be back. Survived yet another week of 2021.
Yes, we're almost out of the first month. A lot of crazy stuff going on. But without further ado, our guest today does not really need an introduction. I was on his show recently, Baleia Breakdown. It's on Flow Grappling right now. This guy is a historian. He is a content creator. He is the Mendez brothers' first black belt.
Yeah.
Riccardo Ammendolia. Welcome to the show, Riccardo.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Stoked to be on. It's funny because you're one of my first guests on the Baleia's Breakdown show. Now, this is the first time being a guest on yours, so I'm stoked to be here. Big fan of both of you guys. Nico's crushing it in the, jiu-jitsu content media scene these last years. And of course, Tim, man, I still remember seeing you fight in Copa Podio and the super fight back in the day, being there, so it's cool, man. Anytime I could talk jiu-jitsu with good people, I'm all about that.
And it's an honor to have you on here. You've been in the game for a very long time. I mean, since the 90s, correct?
Yeah. I started training late 90s, and then kind of getting involved in competitions, competing a little bit, and then starting to organize stuff like later, like 2007-ish. But it's been a minute. Sometimes I'm like, the hell am I still doing in this sport? I was thinking about it today. I'm like, I got 3 kids upstairs that want to watch WandaVision, and I'm like, man, I'm doing, but I love this. That's the thing. It's like Godfather 3. Once I think I'm out, they keep pulling me back in. I can't. This is all I know. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't grow up with other sports, as sad as that is to say. So jiu-jitsu's kind of been my thing that I grew up with, and yeah, man. So I love it. That's why I'm always here.
Yeah, I feel like you're stuck. Like, you have so much good content and more stories to tell that you can't really leave. Like, you have dues to pay to the sport still. But you say you started it in the 90s, but like, where do you live? Like, are you Canadian? Like, if somebody was asking me yesterday if you're Brazilian. I was like, I don't know, because that's it. If you don't know Riccardo, like, I know Riccardo because he's an avid Today fan, and he just has like the most random, hard to find footage of things that you would never know of. So
Yeah.
where are you from?
Okay, so I live in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, which is about half hour, 45 minutes outside of Toronto. Everyone knows Toronto, and about a half hour from Niagara Falls. So my parents are actually Italian. I was born in Canada. My parents came from Italy, but I'm not Brazilian. My wife is Brazilian, and I was given a Brazilian nickname a long time ago, Baleia. That's why. And, Riccardo is with 2 C's, so it's not a Brazilian version. But yeah, that's kind of my nationality story, an Italian Canadian kid. And like you said, kind of been tape collecting for a while. In the beginning, when jiu-jitsu first kind of came to North America, like, there was no YouTube, there was no DVDs. You had to get like a VHS. Either you went to a tournament, or you went to a seminar, or you got a VHS of jiu-jitsu, and that's how you learned. That's it. Because there was no black belts here. Like, there was nothing here, especially in Canada. Like, it's too cold. None of the black belts wanted to come up here. So that is, something I had to do. Like, I started tape collecting back in the day. And at first I was doing it just because I was like a UFC fan. And
Wait, how do you get these tapes though? Like, you say tape collecting, it's like, this is not something you go to Blockbuster and get. Like, where are these jiu-jitsu tapes even coming from?
Yeah. So basically what happened was there was a company called groundfighter.com, or World Martial Arts. And they started selling the first 4. They sold it in a 4-pack for $100. I never forget it. $99.99 plus shipping and handling got you Mundials 96, Brasileiro 93, Copa Atlantica, and Copa Alliance. Okay, so 4 tapes. I thought I was buying. They advertised it in a magazine. That's how I even knew about it. It was in the magazine article. So no YouTube, no internet at that time, right? And what I thought, because of the description, it was a picture of a guy in a valley in a Speedo punching another guy, and then another guy in a gi. So I thought I was buying like some underground Vale Tudo stuff from Brazil, because at the time I was like just getting into jiu-jitsu because of the UFC. So then I get this tape and I see like this huge tournament going on, Worlds 96. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, where's the Speedos? Why aren't they punching? Where's the kicks? You know, where's the brawls? Why are these guys in the gi? What's going on here? And then all of a sudden I start seeing names that I recognize, like Hoyler Gracie. I'm like, oh, okay. Gracie, I know that guy. Oh, Mario Sperry, he fought in Extreme Fighting. Oh, okay. I know. And then I was like, oh, shoot, this is kind of cool. So then I got kind of hooked on the sport. So then around, I don't know what year it was, you know, the internet came out. That's how old I am. And then people started making forums. So one of the first forum was this forum called NHB Gear. And before that, it was called In the Guard. And a guy from Rio and a guy from Philadelphia, I think, started it. And basically people would go on the forum and just be like, hey, man, I just got this VHS tape of, you know, whatever tournament. And then people would be like, I'll trade you, you know? So they would like start just like trading copies. So my funny story about that is back in the day, I was trading with tons of guys just to get whatever footage, because again, we had no YouTube, we had no nothing. So our only access was actually like waiting for the mailman to come and get that VHS stuff out of the envelope and watch it. And I never forget, one of the guys that I ended up trading with was Kenny Florian. And I didn't even realize it till like after he got in the UFC and we were chatting a little bit. And he was like, I asked him about something and he's like, man, you don't remember we traded jiu-jitsu tapes together like a long time ago. And then I kind of sprung a memory, but that was it. That's how you had to learn or kind of understand what was going on in the sport. That was like the very inception of it kind of coming to North America.
Wow.
And
yeah.
I'm assuming that helped you learn new techniques since you were doing jiu-jitsu in Canada and it wasn't a lot.
Heck yeah. Because at the time, like, you know, what at that time, all we had to learn from was whatever seminars were, which at the time was only Hoist Gracie. And that was it, right? And then Henzo came and we're like, what? Like, what is this stuff? You know, because back then the Gracies were, and like a lot of jiu-jitsu people were only showing the exact same stuff. It was like the Gracie basics, they used to call it. And that was their curriculum. So it was like passing the guard with the arm under the leg. You would ask Hoist, man, aren't you going to get triangle? He'd say, private lesson, my friend. Like all the stuff that just doesn't work in like high level jiu-jitsu anymore. But that's what we had to learn back then. So we had to watch jiu-jitsu tapes to kind of like pick up new techniques, you know, and that's what got me hooked. I was like, man, look at this guy, Jamais Lao. Like who the heck is this guy? Look at this sweet little technique. And then I started seeing Leo Vieira. I'm like, you can cartwheel past the guard. Holy shit. You know what I mean? So every year, you know, that's kind of how we progressed, and we would just practice it. We had no idea what we were doing until like maybe, you know, 2001, we started traveling, actually started to go train with some of these guys and ask them. And then we started to understand like the method behind the madness. So yeah, it was a lot of tape trading and learning back in the day for sure.
Wow, you gotta really want it. Like, I couldn't imagine being on a forum. Like, I could barely do Reddit. I don't do Reddit. Like
yeah,
you could be a millionaire if you did Reddit right now, Nico.
I know. Well, the forums were a lot nicer back then. It was all because those forums were all about people like exchanging technique, right? So like, you know, guys like On the Mat just started up as well, and they were one of the first people to actually put you know, jiu-jitsu videos online on their website On the Mat. So people were like learning about all the stuff that was happening in Brazil through them. And yeah, those forums were a lot nicer back in the day. I kind of miss those days. Everyone was like just trying to share knowledge and not like trolling everyone like they are now. So yeah, times have changed for sure.
You mentioned traveling. You said about 2000, 2001. Where did you travel to train? Who did you train with? Who are some of the people that you learned from when you first started to travel?
So my first traveling training trip was 98, I think. And that was at Carlson Gracie Jr.'s in Chicago. And we went there for like 2 weeks, a group of friends. And I feel like in my path, to grappling in jiu-jitsu. I was like fooling around with grappling, let's say in 96, stuff that we learned from the magazine, from the tapes or books. But my real jiu-jitsu training was when I went to Carlson Juniors. I was like, oh my God, this is the real stuff. You know, this is the stuff you can't find in the magazine. The stuff that Ken Shamrock's not showing. He's only showing ankle locks. This is something else. So I went to Carlson Juniors for a couple weeks. We came back, you know, started learning. We would go there, get knowledge, come back and just drill that stuff all year round. If it was 12 techniques a year, that's all it was. And then in 99, we ended up going to Atlanta to Romero Jacare School Alliance. At the time, the academy was called Master in Atlanta. And then we ended up affiliating with the Alliance Jiu-Jitsu Master team at the academy I was training at here in Canada. And I went to Atlanta every year after that myself. You know, I went there repeatedly to go train with Jacare. I became, you know, pretty good friends with some of the guys. And then that's around 2000, 2001. That's when I met like Leo Vieira, Comprido, Terere, Zamara Shvia. And I started to kind of get in with those guys. And then what I would start doing was developing and helping those guys come, you know, to North America for seminars. And then I would write articles about them for On the Mat and so forth. So a lot of my training was through there. And then in 2004, I started to go to Brazil. We had a camp in Búzios for a week. And then
Actually, little secret, low key, like I'm trying to buy property in Búzios, like, because you can't do it in the favela and Rio's too expensive. So I was like, Búzios, because that's where people from Rio go to vacation.
Yeah, exactly. That's like their spot, you know, away in the weekend. There's no violence, there's no nothing. It's so nice.
That's
the beaches are awesome. I love it.
That's about to be my BJJ getaway.
That's it. And at one point, there was a lot of camps in Búzios. Like Alliance was doing them, Braza was doing them. A lot of other guys were going there because that was the spot, you know. And anyway, so I went to 2004. I was in Rio. I got to watch the Worlds in 2004. They're the craziest Worlds ever. I don't care what anyone says. And then I went to Manaus because my wife is originally from Manaus. Mm-hmm. So I got to train in Manaus. And the first year I went, I was like, you know, my funny story is like I went to Jacare's academy, like Ronaldo Jacare. And his professor was like a little standoffish. Let's just say that. Like he was like looking at me like, he's showing me like the Shiai stick and telling me he's gonna like hit me and stuff. And I was like, okay, nice to meet you. Like, you know, it wasn't really welcoming, you know. And then I hooked up with this guy, Cristiano Ribeiro. He teaches in Chicago now, really, really good guy. And I was training at his gym for a couple months in Brazil, Manaus there, and ended up competing there. I was the first Canadian to win a tournament in Manaus. That's my swan song, by the way. I never did anything substantial after that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How was Manaus? Like people compare Manaus to like hell, as in it's like super high. Like
it's hot. It's hot. It's like you have to be willing. You have to understand and accept that you're going to take like 5 to 6 showers a day. That's how hot it is. Just to get out of that heat. It's crazy. You wake up, shower, breakfast, shower, go train jiu-jitsu, shower, and then by the time you get back you need another shower. Like it's like that. And the academies are not, you know, nice, air conditioned. You know, there was like one little window and maybe like a little, you know, rotary fan in the corner and stuff. But the thing is, the guys used to tell me, they were like, you know, a lot of foreigners would come to my house and they're not used to the heat, but then they would tell me like that's our advantage when we would go to competitions, because we would condition our bodies to be, you know, we would exert ourselves so much that we would never get tired when we go to the nice fresh air in Rio de Janeiro or something like that, you know. So the saying was back then that, you know, Manaus necessarily maybe didn't have like the most technical fighters, but they were some of the toughest. You know, the training was insane, you know. So yeah, it was different. It was a lot, because at the end of the day too, there's nothing to do in Manaus. It's not like Rio. Like Rio, it's like you wake up, you can go to the beach, you can go do this, you can go do that. Manaus is like a jungle, or like you work or you do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is great if you want to be a badass in jiu-jitsu, but not so great if you're there on vacation or trying to have a fun time, you know. But it was an experience. And man, I saw a lot of crazy stuff in my time in Brazil, and I wouldn't trade that up for anything. So, traveled to Brazil, went again to Rio a couple times, Manaus every year, visit my wife's family. And then I stopped traveling there for a bit. And then around 2010, that's when I started to go to California, training with the Mendez brothers. And then the academy I was training at here hooked up with the Atos team and the Mendez brothers. And then a couple years after that, in 2012, I got my black belt. And like Tim said, I was the first black belt under Hafan Gi. And that's kind of it. I traveled a lot in the States, more so than Brazil, to train, but I've been pretty blessed and been able to train with a lot of different people in my time. So it's been cool. Got a lot of little bit of spice from everyone.
Whoa, that's a lot. I mean, just you've basically like lived the entire experience of jiu-jitsu in North America. Like, if you think about it, like, you've been here since day one, and I think you're a very valuable resource in the jiu-jitsu community because you had so much experience and you've seen the growth. And now all the way to being one of the premier contributors to the Flow Grappling. I mean, you wear a lot of hats. But my question is, like, what exactly do you do for Flow Grappling?
Okay, so right now, I contribute with, some content. I basically, I have the Baleia's Breakdown show. Mm-hmm. I have, content that I do on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Like, I'll do like technique breakdowns and stuff like that. And then I also, play, as you mentioned, a couple different hats. I could speak Brazilian Portuguese fairly decent. So sometimes I'm a translator to help them. When we go to events in Brazil and, the guys there in production team, they don't speak Portuguese. I have to be the guy that helps them. I know a lot of people in the community as far as events. So I've also been the guy that's kind of hooked up a lot of their event partnerships and, helped kind of facilitate a lot of those deals as well. And, and I think a lot of that came from my experience, because being in Canada, I always wanted to be a part of like a bigger picture. So I always tried to get involved with tournaments outside of Canada to kind of bring that back to Canada. So I got hooked up with the guys at World Pro. Then I eventually went to Abu Dhabi, and then I started working with ADCC. Now I kind of, speak to them on a daily basis and, help them hook up with Flow. So it's kind of like every little step that I've taken, every little grunt job that I did kind of helped get me to where I am, in a position where I know everyone. I feel like I have a good name in the community. I can help, a lot of these kind of people come together, and especially at Flow. So as you said, I kind of wear a bunch of different hats. The breakdown thing is one part of that, but part contributor, part consultant, part jiu-jitsu historian. That's kind of my official, unofficial position.
All right. And since I want to kind of like hash into that a little bit more, especially for people like more about the professional side, looking to like get into doing some kind of photography or anything. So when you talk about like you wear multiple hats, like that would mean like you're just like a contract worker, like you're not staff. Flow, like the content team is only about 4 or 5 people. I think they have a video ninja now, which I'm really jealous. I just want a video ninja. But so everything else you do is just kind of like freelance contract. How would you define that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I contribute on almost like a freelance basis, but I consult on a pretty constant basis, if that makes sense. If that's the right answer. So the majority of my job is not necessarily content. I do consult a lot for them just because I have a lot of experience in the industry, with events specifically. And that's kind of their driving force, is events, and, not necessarily content. It's mostly, the content comes from the events. So because I have experience working with all these different companies, I'm able to kind of help, politically, there's a lot of things you got to understand. I'm sure you guys know that. And I'm able to kind of help with that regard to a degree, and also just kind of, connect the right people to get connected in the industry.
I think that's an interesting perspective, because I don't think a lot of people would see it as like that they do events. I think a lot of people kind of look to them to be content, or like journalists, I guess, per se. And it's like, and it's funny because everything I know about journalism, I learned from Hal, like, because he was my mentor. And it's like, okay, I guess, but there is like a whole nother branch. So like when you think about all of the complaints that there always are, and just the fact that it's like, hey, we're here to put on events.
Yeah.
Like, and like that you say you've gone from having to like bid like trade your world's 98 for like, you know, a Brasileiro's 96 on a forum to like flow. It's kind of interesting to see that progression.
Yeah, it's fun for me for sure.
Uh-huh. And then I guess like the last thing, like in pertaining to like flow and content, and it's like I don't like, because I used to produce content for them, and I know they used to like hire out like I guess like the thing would be like any advice that you have for like any writers, photographers looking to like pitch, like, because again, like these aren't like jobs, like nobody's like filling in job applications, like we're like pitching articles or ideas for content creators looking to get their stuff out there on major platforms that don't have platforms like ours.
So I think the key is that, you know, you've done a great job creating your own content, creating your own brands within the community. And I think that there's two ways that people go about it, is that they sit back, do some work, and then complain. And then there's the people that go out there, put in the work, continue to grind, brand build, network, and do all the stuff that's not fun to do like you have done. And I think when you do the latter, that's when, you know, eventually you'll get recognized, as opposed to just kind of sitting back and saying like, hey, I take great photos. Well, a lot of people take great photos. I make great videos. A lot of people make great videos. But, you know, do a lot of people have a brand? Do a lot of people have experience? Do a lot of people speak multiple languages? Do a lot of people know these different people? That's what's going to make you stick out. And I think that I'm starting to see a rise of independent media people kind of come up, and, you know, independent organizations. And I think it's awesome, because the more the better. And like you said, like Flow is not the official jiu-jitsu news or grappling news of the world. They cover the events. They make news on the events they cover. It just so happens that theirs is pretty much the major events of the world, which is, you know, IBJJF, ADCC, and so forth. So I think that my advice essentially is keep doing your thing. Like, I'm doing my stuff for them, but on my side hobby is like creating my own content. Like, I make my own videos for my own YouTube channel because I want to. And I know that they like this, but I'm more passionate about this. And maybe this isn't going to work. Exactly. So like maybe this doesn't work over there, right? But I really like this. So I'm going to do it. And then whoever also likes it is going to pick it up and be a fan of that. And then occasionally I'll do that stuff too. So when I'm saying this and that, I mean, like, you know, their flow emphasis is the sports and what's going on nowadays, which is nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's how it keeps everyone.
I mean, I'll make it a little bit specific. Like, flow emphasis is not just sport. It's like adults and competitors. Like, so when we're talking about like masters, social impact, like the history, like, and that's fine, because like anytime I tell like HT about something, especially with the bilingual thing, he's like, yeah, bilingual media just doesn't get as much likes. It doesn't get as much traffic. It's the numbers. Like, he'll just give me the numbers. And it's like, yeah, and I've been sitting here for hours translating this. So
I get it.
It makes sense. Like they do things for a purpose. So I always tell people like they have a monopoly because you always click on their shit instead of watching my shit, or instead of watching your stuff. Like, you know, you have to give attention to these other outlets. Do you think that like that? Would you agree? Like, I find there's a lot of media out there.
I agree. I think, but again, as long as you put the work in and you produce good enough content, you're gonna get recognized. You know, like I said, you know, we don't necessarily have like a work affiliation, but I'm a fan of what you do. I'm a fan of BJJ Korea. I'm a fan of like some other companies out there, and it has nothing to do with anything financial or anything like that. I just like what I like. So I imagine other people are going to like that too. But I feel like sometimes some people like they create and then they sit back and they're like, well, it's because Flow's got a monopoly on the sport. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you do your work, you'll get, you know, they'll probably need you. Like Triangalu Films, another example. Like I know Flow's had to work with her a couple times. She's somebody that keeps grinding. You know, Anna, sorry, I forget her last name, but Anna does an amazing job. You know, BJJ Bros, they do a bunch of stuff out there independently as well. So there's a bunch of guys that, you know, if you just put in the work and you do the quality, you know, the opportunities will come. You know, I think I've kind of proven that. I mean, to a degree, I think you have, you know, and I think that, you know, people kind of hate on Flow, and I get it, but it's like the UFC, right? Like I look at it this way, like the UFC makes decisions in the fight world that some people don't understand and they hate, but they don't understand. And that's one of the biggest things, you know, like they don't understand the metrics. And I'm not excusing some of the bad things they might do. I'm just saying, like, people, we're really quick to judge and, you know, have this opinion of what they think is right or wrong without knowing all the facts, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I saw that, you know, from running my own business. I owned a fight shop, you know, so I was involved as well in sponsorship with a lot of MMA athletes, a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes. And the more I started to do that, the more I really learned about the industry, jiu-jitsu and MMA. So sometimes, you know, it's funny, as a former business owner, you would see people like scoff at decisions that, you know, Dana White would make. And I'm just like, man, you probably don't own anything. You've never run a business your life. You know what I mean? Like, do you know how many employees they have? Like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of salaries. You know what I mean? Like, just like, there's so many variables and there's so many layers to that. And I think it kind of goes with, you know, same thing with Flow. Like, there's a lot of numbers, you know, I think there's a lot of stuff that they follow that they have to, because that's what keeps them in business, you know? So I will give them credit, and I think it's amazing. And I'm super happy to be a part of that, because we test the waters with stuff like Legends and you know, some of the Masters documentaries and stuff like that. And I think at the end of the day, whatever works and whatever people like, they're going to do more of. And it's just like the UFC, whatever people like, you know, whatever fighters they like, that's the style they're going to go after, you know, whatever the fighters they don't, they're not. And I think that's just the way of the world, you know. I think it's just how it is.
Yep, I definitely want to put, like, I definitely agree wholeheartedly with that. Cause, like, I mean, I've had a favela jiu-jitsu series on several sites, Flow Grappling being one of them. I am no longer there, and I don't blame Flow Grappling. It's because my articles didn't get the numbers. So when you see all this Gordon Ryan, it's because you guys are clicking on Gordon Ryan, and you care that Gordon Ryan is going to Puerto Rico, and that, like, they're seeing the numbers. Like, they all have like opinions and everything, but like, I sit there at the tournament with the dude that's writing the articles, and I hear what he's saying about the numbers and this and that. So like, you just kind of, like, it's an algorithm. Very much so.
Yeah, they have, like, what I try to explain to people is, when they do stuff, it's not necessarily by mistake, because they know who people are watching, as far as, like, you know, which matches people are signing up for, what are people searching. And a lot of that information is out there. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Google Analytics, look it up yourself.
You can go to Tim's article or interview on Flow Grappling and click on it and watch it like 5 times this week, so all the numbers
on
go
repeat.
up.
On repeat. Yeah.
That's it. But, you know, that's the thing, you know, like, people, if you can do the work, you know what's out there, you know what I mean? Like, it's the numbers don't lie. Like, you know, Master Lloyd used to tell me that. I remember that's the, you know, numbers don't lie, man. It is what it is.
True.
So I like that what both you guys do is that you don't rely on, you know, the bigger platforms like Flow. You guys kind of do your own thing, both of you, but especially you, Riccardo, your YouTube channel, like, that's very unique. It's not necessarily what you would see on Flow. And I got a question, man, like, how and why did you start the YouTube channel? Was it just you wanted to get all the knowledge out there and kind of educate the masses, or what was the motivation?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. You know, I think that, you know, even more so is, like, a lot of the fighters genuinely don't even have their matches from Brazil, from back in the day. Like, I'm talking a lot. Like, a lot of them now message me and say, hey, by the way, do you have this match when I fought this guy? And I'll be like, I don't know. Let me look. I got to go through the VHS collection again, but I might, you know I have this one. a lot of these guys legit didn't have that, you know, because they couldn't afford it. They didn't have the means to save it. They didn't even know where to do it. They focused on other things in their life. So when I started to learn that, I was like, man, this is a big piece of history that people don't know about. You know, there's so many amazing historical moments in the sport that me as a geek, you know, fan, that was it for me. Like, you know, guys winning the Super Bowl or, you know, Michael Jordan. I wasn't into that, you know, for whatever reason. I can't, it's the weirdest thing, but I got into this sport, you know, because the sport kind of did good for me. So these guys were my heroes. And I'm like, man, if I can help these guys, it's kind of like I'm helping my Michael Jordans, you know. I'm like, it's like you feel this weird thing. It's like I'm out there, like, you know, contributing to a guy like, you know, Fernando Tenere, like, or Leo Vieira. Like, I'm putting up footage that he's never even seen. Like, I have so many guys that I put their matches out. They're like, I've never seen my match ever that you put up. Like, thank you, thank you. So that's kind of why I keep doing it, you know. And that's one part. And also just to be able to selfishly, you know, be able to be the guy that's kind of like the historian, the unofficial historian in my own way, you know, in my own way. Because I think people do it, and, you know, some people do it, they're kind of lame. Some people do it and it's kind of biased, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just everyone's got their own style. I just like my style, you know. I like being a little entertaining, be a little funny, having technical knowledge, historical knowledge, all kind of wrapped up into one. So that's, you know, it's selfish, you know, to be honest, but I just want to get it out there. You know, I want people, I feel like if I get as much as I feel that was awesome for me as a geek and a fan out there, the more the sport will grow for reverse osmosis or something. I don't know, but I just selfishly want everything that I liked to be out there so that I feel like jiu-jitsu had the best chance possible. And no one could say like this sport was junk and never went anywhere. I want people to feel the emotion that I felt at 2004 Worlds watching Tedere fight Hodger, or, you know, Hodger break Jacare's arm. So me telling these stories and putting these matches to build up these guys' careers that they would never know about is my little way of doing that. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And I really appreciate what you do. I mean, when I first got into the game, it was very difficult. I mean, it was easier than when you started.
Yeah.
But, you know, I definitely appreciate what you do, because I am like a history buff when it comes to sports, especially jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And, you know, I saw your video on exquisite. I can't pronounce it,
Okay.
but your video,
Your Portuguese
Esquigard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I guess.
But your video on Haleta, and you know, whenever I get asked people that influenced me when I started, I said Haleta. He was the first guy, because I was a tall, lanky kid, and he doesn't get enough credit because he was one of the first Hall of Famers.
I didn't know who he was.
Hold on a sec. Tim Spriggs, I don't know if you know this. I did that for you, brother.
Oh,
because a long time ago. No. Listen, because a long time ago, I was talking about I was talking about doing jiu-jitsu history videos, and I never forget the day you told me that you're like, man, do one on Holeta. And in my mind, I was like, Tim Spriggs is a Holeta fan? Like, why would you want that? I'm like, what? I was like, I don't know. I'm like, so maybe there is people that like that stuff. I was like, I couldn't put it together. So in my head, I was like, okay, if Tim Spriggs likes it, other people must like it too. So I gotta do it. So it was always in my back of my head. And then I kind of found the motivation recently to kind of put it all together. But you planted the seed, you know, and that was it, brother. That was it. So that's all you. Thank you.
He was the beginning of the idea, and then he was the end of it, because he just massacred that name. He just killed it.
And I didn't know that's what they called it. I just remember it was the Holeta
Esquiga.
sweep.
Esquisito. I don't know. Esquiga. It is a weird kind of like
so Esquijitsu.
Esquijitsu.
Esquisito means like strange, and esqui is kind of the reference to like weird or strange. So like, I guess the story is Holeta was just doing all this stuff that people were like, what the hell is this? Like, this is not jiu-jitsu, you know, kind of like what they say today when the old guys go see a Berimbolo or, you know, reverse Del Hiva or whatever. They're like, this is not jiu-jitsu. That's what they used to say about him. And, you know, he was winning with it, you know, beating top level guys, you know, and that was kind of why I wanted to tell the story. And I think there's a lot of guys like that. Like that's my biggest thing too, is I want to not just be able to tell the stories of like what they won, but the technical innovation. So like one of my next guys, Leo Vieira, you know, invented the leg drag. Okay. The rolling back take. Okay. Amazing judo, popularized the Bravo choke. Okay. So there you go. Like those are four, and I believe there's more that I have too. Things that he was the guy that planted the coyote guard in Lucas Leitch's mind. Crazy, right? And I just learned that like 3 weeks ago from Leo because I showed him a video of a seminar he did. He's like, watch this video. He's like, look what I'm doing there. That's coyote guard. And Lucas Leitch learned from me from this. I was like, oh my God. So there's so many things. So that's the stories that I want to start getting into to telling, you know, is like, man, like this guy was responsible not only for winning this title, but creating these techniques like 1, 2, 3, you know, Eduardo Telles, the turtle guard, obviously, Terere, the long step pass, and all these other things. That's my focus, you know, is just getting all that out there so that people can one day kind of backtrack it. Because I know for me, like I love studying film, and I feel like the best way to do it is if you learn where it came from. If you know like the most basic way that was formulated, then you can add all the bells and whistles to it instead of just looking on the bells and whistles and understanding where the concept of it came from. So that's kind of, again, my selfishness coming to fruition in jiu-jitsu again.
But I think that makes sense. And that's really important because like, for me, I really like that video because you took a person that I had, no idea who he was. And then like related it into like up to present day, to techniques and people that I actually knew. So like, it really like, I really like content like that. Like I'm not a big person on watching technique videos. I've always really liked things like BJJ hacks. It's been like philosophy that stood out to me, things that people say. I think like one of the things that got me to like really become Terere's student was like he didn't even know me. And he was just like, yo, why are you standing in front of them to try to pass their guard? Because you need to pass to the side. And I was just like, you know, it's like those kind of things. Like, so so I really love the video that you made. So if y'all haven't gone out and seen it, make sure to check it out because that is not on Flow Grappling. You actually have to go out and find the YouTube channel, subscribe.
Share, subscribe.
That's it. I got a funny story for you. You know who taught me my first half guard sweep?
Who?
Fernando Terere.
Wait, so you met him in the US too, right?
I met him in the US, and what's funny is we were chatting 3 days ago, and I said something about half guard, and he's like, yeah, he's like, you remember when I showed it to you in Atlanta? You were asking me, and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, and I don't even know if he was like just, you know, messing around, but it's crazy. Yeah. So when I was in the US, you know, Terere, Comprito, all those guys were there. And I was just like a kid. Like I was just like you know, I was in like Disneyland, you know, I got to sit there and train with them twice a day, film them training, ask them anything, film them spar. I got insane sparring footage that I'm going to publish soon. You ain't see of Leo Vieira training with Terere rolling with Mayhem Miller, crazy stuff, like just awesome stuff. Wow. But it was so cool. Cause like literally anything I wanted to know, they were there to answer my questions.
What's good, y'all? Thanks again for listening. If you want to hear the rest of our interview with Riccardo, make sure that you follow us and subscribe to our Patreon. That's where you can get all types of exclusive content, ask me anything, just a whole lot of goons material. So make sure that you follow us on Patreon.